The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Let's go! What's that? It's gonna be a football game tonight now. No doubt. It's gonna be a football game here. Okay. I done been here before. All right, let's go, baby.
9. Rushing 4, ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground, and it's still on the ground. Picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line. Vaughn Miller did it again. Watson, touchdown!
Hunter Renfrow. Little man makes another enormous play. 1 second remaining.
Ladies and gentlemen, football to the max.
Your host, Sean Garmer, Gary Vaughn, and Randy Isbell.
Hello and welcome to another Football to the Max as we are doing the championship game recap episode. Certainly two games that wound up very easy to watch after a while because you could just, flip the channel because you already knew who was going to win. But still worth talking about for the two teams that are now going to be in the Super Bowl, the Atlanta Falcons and the New England Patriots. And there's also a couple of other former Patriot re-signs with a team he was sent to during the season. And a little trade that perhaps could even be talked about, maybe not talked about at all. But Dallas seems to be sort of at least entertaining the idea. We'll have to see if that's even going to be anything that grows legs beyond that. But, guys, what's been going on? So how do you feel about it? Is it a letdown for you, championship game Sunday? Or do you kind of feel like, well, it's good. We now know who the two best teams are. I know Randy had a vested interest, so.
The bigger letdown is the fact that I was excited to come on this podcast knowing that we were not going to have to talk about your Cowboys. And now you're finding a way to get your Cowboys. Not going to have it. No, it was a complete letdown. Yes, obviously my girlfriend's a Packers fan, so that game it was rough. But listen, Atlanta completely destroyed them. They were by far the better team, and the team that I thought was going to make the Super Bowl in the NFC. But watching her not say anything for 3 hours in just complete disgust was not the most fun to watch. And we actually went bowling as a family after the game just to kind of get away from it. And so luckily, I only was kind of catching bits and pieces of then the second blowout. So it's very disappointing, especially after we had a couple really good games in the divisional round, to then just see two games that you knew pretty early who was going to win those games.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And, it's one of those where you get excited about the game. I can tell you this, the lead up to the first game, Packers and Falcons, that energy was so high. You're just ready. You could hear it in the crowd, the way the announcers were barely being able to talk over the crowd. You're just thinking, man, this is exciting.
Last game at the Georgia Dome ever.
Yeah, all that hype. And then 15 minutes into the game, you're just kind of like, man, I can go get some soda or something because I'm not going to miss much. They're just going to keep going down the field and scoring touchdowns.
Yeah, by halftime it was over. Or before then, but,
Yeah, so... Yeah, I mean, to each his own. I mean, I think if you're a fan of the Falcons or Patriots, you're just ecstatic. But if you're just a football fan watching this game, you're just kind of like, man, come on. Hopefully the Super Bowl's better.
Yeah, I mean, let's just to talk about something in the game, just Julio Jones was an absolute monster. He got a 70-something yard touchdown, stiff-arming people down the field. He got some big grabs. Of course, the one will be talked about some more. He flips over and still catches it. Matt Ryan getting a rushing touchdown. 4 different players, I think, scored touchdowns. I mean, the like major guys that you know are going to be involved in the offense, they accounted for almost all of Matt Ryan's yardage. Mohamed Sanu, Tevin Coleman, Devontae Freeman, and Julio Jones. I think they accounted for like 480 something yards of his 400 and so I don't remember, but it's some ridiculous number that those 4 guys accounted for almost all of his yardage. And you know, it's all a little unfortunate too because the Packers had opportunities where there was unfortunate errors on the Falcons side, and they just couldn't get those. Where Ryan fumbled a couple of times, and Taylor Gabriel gets in the way of they had a miscommunication, and they could have grabbed that fumble. In fact, I think a Packer had it, and somehow he lost it. Packers dropping balls, which, you know, seems to be a case for the Packers, you know, all year. And I got to say, Aaron Rodgers, at least to not give up and put up the 21 points, you know, to keep going for that team, I think shows you how much of a gamer he is. And, I mean, they could have just given up, right? And to go out there and still try and still give it everything, I think that shows how he is. I mean, he started gushing about Jordy Nelson playing with his rib injury, but I wonder how smart that really was. But, you know, it is what it is. I mean, anything you guys want to take away from the game itself before we, I guess, move on to the next one, even though there's not a whole lot to talk about there either.
I'll say this. You know, we talked about the magic, and we talked about it after the Dallas and the Green Bay game, and the fact that just, man, it just seems like this is a magical year for Aaron Rodgers, and, you know, he's helping lead this team with that magic, and it seems like he ran out of fairy dust. He just...
I was going to ask, do you think they just kind of ran out of gas? Like, it was so hard to get through that game that to get to this one, it's just like, man, I got to get to that level again.
You know, I've seen some people say that, and I don't know. I think really what really got him in the last game, and maybe what did propel him into this game, was the fact that they did what they wanted to with Dallas, and Dallas was seemingly unprepared. They just were not prepared for this Green Bay Packers team. Atlanta seemed to be just that. And Dan Quinn, excellent defensive coordinator. Of course, now he's a head coach, but I'm sure he had a lot of input in that, you know, defense and how they were going to run things and how they were going to stop Aaron Rodgers. So you got to give them credit for all that. But, I mean, I think that the Packers came to this, you know, probably a little tired. Of course, you know, if you want to go with excuses, they were delayed in their flight and all that. I think in the long run, you know, injuries, you got to give it.
In that game, they couldn't stop having people get injured.
Well, they walk in with 3 of the receivers injured, especially one of them, the top one, who was, I mean, you got to give it to him, man, playing with broken ribs. Wow. But then, yes, you lose Montgomery. Then you start losing defensive players, which you can't afford to.
Offensive linemen.
Yeah, linemen. But even the linemen, I want to focus on their defense. They cannot lose defensive players. Their defense is not good enough to lose defensive players. They were playing with backups in the first place. So now you're playing with backups to backups. It's not a good situation. Atlanta took advantage of everything they could. Atlanta did what Dallas didn't want to do. They used their running backs. They threw the ball to their running backs. And then they took advantages of their other weapons that they had. Every weapon at their disposal, Matt Ryan used. Dak Prescott, rookie, I don't know. I don't think it's all his fault either. I think the offensive coordinator didn't really decide to use that.
Again, we're going to go through this.
Well,
the only time that they messed up not running the ball was at the end.
Wait, I don't remember them running the ball a ton at the beginning of the game either.
But why did they? That doesn't change anything. They would have been down by that much.
I don't know. I have different philosophies. It's not the Dallas Cowboys show. We could talk about that in the offseason. I really think this is the Cowboys.
Are you sure it's not?
I really feel, this is my personal opinion. You guys, we're making this about the Cowboys. This is about the Falcons and Green Bay, but we can talk about this really
brought
quickly.
it up, so I'm
making the comparisons why Green Bay did not have success while the Falcons did and why Dallas couldn't beat Green Bay. It's because of this formula. They used both the running backs. Darren McFadden, Ezekiel Elliott, those guys could do pretty much the same thing. I personally believe that Freeman and Coleman do. I know Troy Aikman said that this is Walter Payton and Tony Dorsett. Those guys are not that great. They're good. Trust me, they're excellent running backs, but they're not God-given running backs. My point is Dallas should have ran the ball, did exactly what Atlanta did, used them out of the backfield. Both those guys can catch. That's my point.
I'm confused with what game we're talking about right now.
I know. We're talking
about. It's fine.
No, but Randy, you go ahead and tell me your thoughts. I just thought that Green Bay was excited.
I'll do the same thing you did, Gary, and I'll compare the Dallas Green Bay game to the Green Bay Atlanta game, and I think it's really simple. Green Bay started extremely hot against Dallas, who, listen, we're not going to go back and break down that game, but I think that it took a little bit for the rookies of Dallas and that team to kind of get their momentum going. Once Dallas got going, they stormed back against Green Bay and went against the flaws and stuff that you were talking about. It just took them a little while to get to this game. Now, fast forward to the Sunday game against Atlanta, it's the exact opposite. Matt Ryan was red hot from the get-go, and on the Green Bay side, you had a missed field goal in the red zone, and then you had Ripkowski fumble in the red zone their next drive. You had back-to-back red zone trips end up with 0 points against Matt Ryan and an offense that was not going to be stopped by that Packers defense, whether they were healthy or not. Right, just period. Now, Aaron Rodgers does everything he can to try to get him back in this game, but as has been mentioned already, the drops were ridiculous. Aaron Rodgers was getting rushed out of the pocket every other play, it seemed like, which we've seen a lot this season. It was just, I think the sense of urgency hit a lot harder here, just for the fact that you're playing an Atlanta team which you know is going to score a ton, and you've already gotten into the red zone twice and gotten nothing. So then
what also helped Dallas too is Dallas got some of those turnovers that Green Bay didn't get. How huge was that interception by Jeff Heath in that game? The Packers didn't get something like that to stop the Atlanta's momentum. They couldn't. So the defense never helped them out, and that put them in a bigger hole.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's the same thing. I think if Dallas starts out better last week, they probably beat Green Bay because they had figured out the formula by the second half. Here, it was just straight up from the get-go. Atlanta had them figured out. Green Bay had no running game, so put the pressure on Aaron Rodgers, and it worked out beautifully. And then on the Atlanta side, I totally agree with Gary on this point. I've came into the season not believing that much in Devontae Freeman, partially because of Tevin Coleman. But both of these guys, even though you look at their numbers, they're not that great, especially running the ball, but they're such high-impact players that you have to account for them at all times, especially in the passing game, which doesn't allow you then to double and triple team Julio Jones and Sanu and Gabriel. They have such an amazing mix of deep threats in their receivers and dump down running backs who can then make the big play. It is so tough on defenses to figure that out. And we have a Super Bowl where you have we'll get to what the Patriots did against the Steelers, but you have Belichick who has 2 weeks to design a defense against an offense that I think is completely high-powered.
You know what? This is going to be interesting because they have that. The Patriots have very similar dynamics with that. Dion Lewis does almost exactly what those guys do. And then you got Blunt. So perhaps the Patriots could try to figure it out because they have the players that can mimic what they do. You know, it's going to be interesting. I just hope that we don't have a situation in the Super Bowl where one of them punches in the mouth, and then, you know, because the Patriots have a pretty good defense now, just like the Atlanta's defense is pretty good, and they proved it in this game as well. That the Atlanta defense was stood up to the task. If one of the defenses gets going, that, you know, hopefully we don't get blowout in the Super Bowl either, because those are the worst. You plan that whole day around that game, and then it's over by halftime, and you're just basically waiting for the game to keep going so you can watch the commercials. Yeah, so let's get into this Steelers and Patriots game. Obviously, losing Le'Veon Bell is huge for the Steelers. He is a game-changing running back. But honestly, the way that defense was forgetting that there was a guy named Hogan that they had to cover, brother. But, I mean, seriously. Like, the dude's been doing stuff this year. You might want to realize where he is and cover him. I don't know. 2 times he's there, he's wide open. I mean, come on, Steelers. Y'all are supposed to be getting better defensively, not worse. They were pressuring Tom Brady, but, they were figuring it out and just sliced and diced to see this Steelers defense after Le'Veon Bell went down, and they had to figure out something else.
Yeah, that injury definitely changed the course. I mean, obviously you have Belichick, who is going to figure out a game plan. We've talked about it all season. What does he do? He takes out your biggest threat. Well, an injury took out the biggest threat, which made it so much easier for the Patriots just to kind of shut down that offense, which, let's be honest, that offense over the last couple months has not been as great as we have thought it should
Malcolm
be.
Butler did a pretty good job on Antonio Brown, too. Let's not give him
well,
credit.
absolutely, but that's not fair. I mean, the NFL screwed them over, or what was it, Pizza Hut or Domino's or whatever commercial they were in. So Malcolm Mitchell's been getting extra practice against Antonio Brown, and that hurt him. But I'm just saying, as far as the Steelers' offense goes, we get so swept up in what Le'Veon Bell's numbers have been and what Antonio Brown's been. That offense, that's it. That's your offense. There's no number 2 guy. I mean, that's what Mike on the Fantasy Podcast talked about all year long. You can't trust anybody after those 2 guys. And when you go up against the Patriots, who have a really good defense and a great schemer, you have to bring something else to the table than that, and they just weren't able to do it, especially once Bell went down, and then that's all she wrote. Just make sure Brown doesn't beat you, and that's it.
You also can't have guys dropping balls that are very important. Sammy Coates, man. I don't know. You're going to have to figure out. Somebody needs to get Sammy Coates some stickum or something. That dude, half the time he's dropping the ball. And Kobe Hamilton, who's actually a pretty sure-handed guy, also dropped a big, I think it wasn't a touchdown. It was pretty close. And Jesse James, dude, you got to get in the end zone. The hell, man. Like, that's the kind of stuff. You have to play the perfect game against the Patriots, and the Steelers just didn't do it. Especially once Bell goes down, but you got to play. Everybody's got to be on their game, and you can't be making mistakes like that.
Yeah, and you know what? Give me Le'Veon Bell in this game. Never take him out. I still feel like, even though he's changed the entire game for the NFL, I don't think it matters at the end of the day. I think the Patriots still win this game. I don't think that he's going to affect it too much to where they're not going to win. Maybe it's not by as much. But at the end of the day, I don't think that he could even help them on this one. I think that the Patriots kind of had things figured out. I go back to what Randy was saying. This offense has not exactly been stellar. Now, on paper, man, they're terrifying. I mean, I'm shaking my boots just looking at that roster of this 3-headed monster, and then plus some of these other great talents they have. It's just the fact of the matter, they're not playing up to what that level is. We saw them play in Kansas City, where Le'Veon Bell played the entire game, but still, they kicked a ton of field goals. In fact, they kicked them all to win. No end zone carries for Le'Veon Bell that changed everything.
Well, Chiefs' front line is major. I mean,
I know. Well, I'm just saying, for an offensive juggernaut that they're supposed to be, you should match up well with good defenses, right? If good on good, right? I'm just saying. My point being in all this is, I still feel like that they're going, but they're hitting a wall, and it's drops, it's mistakes. It's just something that's going on with the Steelers that kind of halted them from being that stellar offense in this game. And I do feel for them, because they have great talent, and honestly, they had just as every right to win that game, because the Patriots, to me, they match up pretty well. I just think at the end of the day, the Patriots planned better, and I think they just outplayed them.
Oh, well, definitely. That happened.
But I don't think the Pittsburgh defense is very great, by the way. They're good. They're young. They've got some young players, especially those linebackers. Dang, those guys are awesome. It's just the fact on the back end. It was proven in this game they're still weak.
Oh, yeah, certainly. The Steelers, I'm going through their schedule, but did they play the Patriots during the regular season? I can't remember. They didn't, right?
I'd have to look that up.
Yes, they did. They lost 27-16.
Well, I mean, I think the Patriots this year is the first time in this postseason that you haven't had that reversed, where it seemed like the other team was the losing team is the one that learned from winning or from losing in the regular season, and they went out and just put it to them in the postseason. The Packers lost, they beat the Cowboys. The Falcons lost, they beat the Seattle and the Packers. Patriots don't really lose to people, but the Steelers had whooped the Chiefs, and the Chiefs figured out how to make it a closer game. The Steelers barely won that game. So this is one of those cases where I think, Le'Veon Bell going down matters a ton. It matters absolutely so much to that team because he is so much of their offense in the passing game and in the running game. But, I mean, again, the Bill Belichick had, let's be honest, Bill Belichick I think is 6-1 against the Steelers? So, yeah, I think he pretty much knows how this offense works, and he's got this team down. At this point as well. We gotta remember that. So,
and I think the recurring theme in both the games we just talked about is turnovers. The teams that lost seemed to lose more than one, and they couldn't recover from those, and they couldn't start the game out hot like the opposing team did. So those are some themes in these games, and it's a shame because you wanted better games, but at the same time, it's almost like they really didn't deserve it.
And I'm just going to throw this out here just for a hot take because we need it, and it's something I believe in. New England won this game because they have a Hall of Fame quarterback, and Pittsburgh doesn't.
Ouch.
Wow, I'm surprised. Now, I'm not going to defend it.
No,
Sean,
Big Ben's going to go in the... It doesn't matter what Randy says. Big Ben's going to go in the Hall of Fame.
But what is the difference between Big Ben and Eli Manning?
Eli Manning's going to go in the Hall of Fame, too.
But neither should. This is the same argument of the Hall of Fame, not the Hall of Very Good.
But this is what every Hall of Fame that isn't baseball is. It's the Hall of Very Good.
Baseball kind of is going that route too. Tim Raines, I love you, bud. He should not have been in the Hall of Fame.
I don't know.
The Baseball Hall of Fame now is
getting.
The Baseball Hall of Fame is getting hurt by not allowing all these steroids people in. And now we're getting he was pretty good for a long time.
I figured it would have taken them a while for Jeff Bagwell. I was really surprised he went in this quick. But this is how American sports treats the Hall of Fames. It's longevity. It's did you have some stats that stand out as some of the greatest of all time? I mean, look, he has all the Steelers stats. If Tony Romo had won, I think, one Super Bowl, we'd be talking about Romo in a different way. So that's just how this game works. Eventually, a lot of people get in. I mean, also, if the NFL didn't have that rule where it seems like they have to have 6 or 7 people get in every year, that might also...
Yeah, that's also true. Yeah. Both of the Steelers Super Bowls were with Bill Cowher, right?
One of them.
Tomlin.
Tomlin won the last one.
Tomlin won the last one, but that was a early after the turnaround, right? How did Tomlin become the head coach?
2 years after the turnaround or something like that, 2 or 3. I could be wrong. I need to look that up.
Because they won it 2 out of 3 years. I just can't remember when he took over.
I know the...
2007, so that was... Oh, so Bill Cowher won the Super Bowl and left. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
I'm just saying, because you look at the last, from 2009 to now, and Big Ben has done awful in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
I think he started out on a Hall of Fame pace, and he's kind of just died out.
Yeah, I get that. I think that it's the fact that he's been in multiple Super Bowls is going to.
I mean, but look at Brett Favre. Did he really do that great in the playoffs?
He won one Super Bowl.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, there's guys that just haven't done. Peyton Manning, I mean, his records.
It's also not just about Super Bowls. I mean, I hate that argument.
Well, I'm talking about playoff record,
just one more. But yeah, I just wanted to bring it up because honestly, I mean, other than 2014, where that Steelers offense was ridiculous. I want to say in the last how many times could you say Big Ben was a top 3 quarterback in the league?
Well, some of these years he's been hurt too. Like last year he had 3 different injuries.
Well, that shouldn't be an excuse.
No, but you're asking why he wasn't top 3 in the league is because of that year.
I'm just saying, looking at it talent-wise, how many times in each year did we go, he was one of the best 3 quarterbacks talent-wise in the league?
Because until that 2014 season, they didn't have the offense that they've had where he really was going to be that top 3 guy. They ran the ball.
So then he shouldn't be a Hall of Fame. If you have to get an offense around him, Aaron Rodgers does it with anybody.
Right.
Tom Brady does it with anybody. Peyton Manning did it with anybody. Big Ben, you needed to put people around him. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, you know what? Some of the greatest quarterbacks there are look at all the talent Joe Montana had. Look at Troy Aikman's in the Hall of Fame. You can argue maybe he shouldn't be there. Look at all the talent he had.
Yeah, look, I just can't wait till we're doing this podcast talking about the Hall of Fame, and we're talking to Randy about Trent Dilfer in the Hall of Fame.
Oh God.
Brad Johnson's right after
That's
him.
when we really have hit the bottom. If Trent Dilfer ever gets nominated. Now, college Hall of Fame, sure, man. But,
I get Randy's point. I get your point, Randy, and I do understand where you're coming from. It's kind of like we talked about the Pro Bowl, right? There's a reason you were so against Dak Prescott, because of the fact the numbers don't match up, and I get that, and I can understand the argument. I just think that when those guys get in there and they do this voting, they put up a few things, and those things are, what's this guy's numbers, and how many rings did he win? Oh, he won a couple. The numbers weren't so great. Hey, he gotten how many? Okay, well, hey, you got to put him in there.
Well, and then also some of these guys that get in, it's, he's on TV. Let's get him in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying Marshall Faulk or Dion or whatever. Those guys obviously deserve to be in. But, I think that Terrell Davis is getting on the ballot all these times now because you're seeing him on NFL Network. Kurt Warner, you're seeing him on NFL Network. Who knows? I wonder if they weren't visible all the time, if we're talking about them getting less votes. But I'm glad we went through this, having a little diversion here before we. Honestly, I don't think there's much left to talk about that game. We'll get into our Super Bowl preview next week. Probably both the shows will have to do with that. We're not Pro Bowl lovers, so I don't even know if we're going to wind up doing a show on Thursday or not. It's up to you guys, but
I want to have a preview of the dodgeball game.
Yeah.
What are we going to preview? That guy hit the other guy, and
do we know the participants of the dodgeball game yet? That's what I want to know.
I don't know. You can go look that up.
We'll break it down. How about that?
I guess you could preview the Senior Bowl too if you want. I don't. But.
Oh man.
Yeah, so the Senior Bowl is much more interesting than the Pro Bowl, quite honestly. But anyway, so Jamie Collins gets re-signed by the Browns after he got shipped over there by Bill Belichick because he didn't want to take a pay cut. A 4-year extension for $50 million, so he got his money. Does he deserve it?
He's a great player. I don't know if he's so deserving of so much, but I think for what they're wanting out of him, I think they want him to be a very happy man. I think they want him to be all Cleveland Browns, getting him to be the leader on that defense. I think it's a big deal for them. And so I think in a way, yeah. I think if they would have tried to undercut him or paid him, a really salary cap, super friendly, sweet, favor to them, he may just be like, okay, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to get my check and get out of here. And I think that that's what they're doing. They're setting a precedent. They're trying to get their leader. And I think that they feel like, he's been, a part of a championship team. Then, maybe he can give these guys a little rub of that.
Well, I think the Browns have also run into that problem where they actually have to spend some of their money. Like, I think you have to spend a certain amount of the salary cap before they even let you, be clear for next season. So, wow. I think that goes into that. Like, they actually have to spend some of their money, so they have to sign somebody to some kind of big deal, whether they want to or not. Yeah. Anything on your end, Randy?
Sorry, I'm reading about the dodgeball game.
He's like FG calling.
I have participants for the dodgeball game. I'll tell you that. We'll talk about it in a minute.
Go.
But no, listen. We all kind of made fun of this trade going to Cleveland because we didn't think that he was going to re-sign with them, and it actually turns out good. You need players like this for the Browns, even if you feel like they overpay him or underpay him or whatever. You need star players. They need, honestly, since they can never figure out how to get a quarterback, why not try to go the Houston route, build a defense up, and then somehow figure out how to get the offense going? I'm okay with it, and I'm glad they were able to re-sign him so that trade doesn't look like more nonsense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm right there with you, and I think that Cleveland, is going to be hopefully making more decisions like this, going out and finding quality free agents and adding pieces of their team that are really going to be favorable to them, rather than just signing guys on and just hoping and praying. Get the guys that are going to make an impact now, and that they're going to do something, and they're high energy, they're high motivational type guys, because you need those kind of guys in that locker room, because what is that locker room right now? They don't know much about winning. They don't know what it is to win. You've got to get people that do know what it's like to win and do believe in themselves and their teammates, and that'll hopefully change the culture with the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, let's hope so. I really want to see that team do something and be good and, represent that city like the Cavs have, and to finally be, a team to actually be reckoned with in the AFC North instead of it being about the other three teams, honestly. So, yes, and now we get into some scuttlebutt, I guess you can call it. Don't know if this is going to grow any legs outside of Dallas or just the Dallas media, because it doesn't mean that, because Dallas media says something that Jerry Jones and the Cowboys front office have to talk about it, or even, have this be a thing. But Chris Carter, who has now become a radio personality, or I don't know if he does TV or whatever, but he mentioned that perhaps the Dallas Cowboys, in trying to get rid of Tony Romo, and Romo obviously having roots in Dallas, having family, his family there, the kids, everything, taking a 4-hour drive to Houston, or I guess on a plane to be 45 minutes, wouldn't really be a bad deal for Tony Romo. He wouldn't really have to relocate anything other than, okay, we're going to have to take some hotel trips to Houston when I have games and such. But Chris Carter mentioned that perhaps the Cowboys needing also a defensive lineman, needing a pass rush. Why not ask the Houston Texans for J.J. Watt and his big contract, taking Tony Romo's big contract, replacing Brock Osweiler and giving them a quarterback that, can actually throw the ball, and the Cowboys' first-round pick for 2017. Randy, let's leave out the whole, is it even possible? would this be a good trade? Just saying.
Let's take out the facts that it's logistically almost impossible to make happen. But let's start. It's yeah. I mean, if you want to take all money aspects out of it, absolutely, that's perfect for both teams. To me, you put Tony Romo on a team with a great defense and a chance, to make the Super Bowl. To be honest, in the AFC with Houston, and then you take J.J. Watt, who is a great defender, and you put him over there on Dallas, who feels like they're one or two pieces away if, these young rookies don't have a sophomore slump. So, I think it would help both pieces. Just financially, it makes zero sense. But Dallas is going to have to do something like this. It's interesting how high a draft pick they're also going to have to give up in this, but if said deal would be happening. But it's interesting, and honestly, out of all of the rumors we're going to be hearing, like if you took the money out of it and just had fantasy booking going, it's the most intriguing.
I look at this and sure, for the Dallas Cowboys, it would be fun to have that 99 and, the blue and white and, taking pictures, and he's a big deal and excitement and all that. But here's the thing, just like the guy you're trading away, the injury concern is there. And you're paying big bucks for a guy that you may have play 15 games. I'm just saying he's probably going to miss one somewhere. Or a guy that plays 3 for you and he's done. They've already had that. They've done that, been there. They do it all the time. In fact, they draft
have
guys.
Randy Gregory who just won't play at all.
They get that, and then they have guys that are number one defensive end, DeMarcus Lawrence, who just I got a bad back now. So they've got some injury concerns already on that position. I think Dallas is trying to be the Patriots, and it sounds funny, but they really are. They're going the route of let's draft. Let's not go make those big splashes unless it makes sense for our team. Can we afford it? And J.J. Watt, taking away the money, yeah, it's fun. Putting in the money, and then giving a number one draft pick. I think Dallas now, they really, really value their draft picks. I don't imagine that's something they're going to want to part with. I think if it was a lesser draft pick, it's probably more in the talks. But a number one draft pick, I think, for Dallas may break that deal.
I mean, I haven't looked at obviously, once the Super Bowl happens, we'll be looking more at, who's going to be in the draft and everything. But when we did have the draft last year, there was a lot of defensive linemen that people were projecting way lower that went a lot higher because defensive linemen are a premium at this point now. So...
And this draft is actually high on defensive ends and corners. I mean, they've got a ton of defensive ends. So Dallas would probably be able to get at least a solid one if they wanted one, even as far down as
and that's the point, though. Like, you're going to have that, 26, 27-ish pick? So, you're probably going to find a defensive lineman down there, and he's going to be young, and... he's not, you hope he's not injury prone. I mean, we already seeing Shaq Lawson going to have another surgery, and the guy really didn't even play last year for the Buffalo Bills. So, you can also run the risk of whoever you draft is just a total injury bust, or just a bust, period. Whereas, J.J. Watt is a known commodity. Even if he does play 3 games, he's going to give you everything and everything in those 3 games that he plays. Mm-hmm. I think he also would make DeMarcus Lawrence and everybody else on that defensive line like a zillion times better. So, you already saw Malik Collins getting better. You saw Terrell McClain. You saw those guys getting better. So, imagine you put a freaking all-pro guy like J.J. Watt on that line, how much more space there's going to be because they're double teaming J.J. Watt for those guys to get in there and get sacks. And I mean, I think if you take the money away from it, like Grandy said, you almost have to do this deal. But when you put the money in and saying Romo's going to take a pay cut and then you're taking J.J. Watt's whatever's left of his big contract, and you're weighing that injury risk against that contract and all that stuff. That's where I think the Cowboys might say, I don't know about a first-round pick. He's definitely a first-round pick caliber player right now, but don't know if we're going to part with that.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, really quickly, I think if this was, I don't know, I'm going to say 2003, 2007, Randy would laugh his head off at our Cowboys because of the fact that Jerry Jones would have already done this. He'd have said, yes, do it now. It'd have already been done. 3 days ago it would have been done. Giving up whatever so he could have the big name. So now Stephen Jones has got more of a role. I think that's my biggest concern. Stephen Jones is not so big on these big name players.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting what happens here. But anything, so who's in this dodgeball thing? Right?
Okay, so from what I've been able to see, the people I'm going to list, I guess, are in the dodgeball, but they're in all of the other competitions too. Okay. So this is for the whole skills competition. So on the AFC, you have Denver Broncos linebacker Von Miller, their cornerback Chris Harris Jr. You have Colts wide receiver T.Y. Hilton, Chiefs quarterback Alex Smith, Bengals defensive tackle Geno Atkins, and the Browns tackle Joe Thomas. That's your AFC side for the skills challenge and the mighty dodgeball game. On the NFC side, you have Cardinals quarterback Patrick Peterson. You have Panthers linebacker Thomas Davis. You have
I think Thomas Davis, they said he's hurt, right? That's why Sean Lee's in there.
Oh, is Sean Lee now going to be in this? This was posted earlier today.
Oh, earlier today? Okay, well, maybe he's going to do the skills challenge but not playing the game.
Oh, excuse me. It could be changed. This was actually posted on the 22nd, so I lied. It wasn't earlier today. So it could be Sean Lee now. Excuse me. Again, I couldn't find anything on NFL.com.
Is that who Sean Lee went in for, Gary? I know somebody was hurt and they changed him out.
It could be. I can't tell you.
Same thing with Dez went in for
Julio Jones.
Julio Jones, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So either way, it'll be probably a linebacker of some sort.
Yeah, but anyway, so right now it's Thomas Davis. I'm looking at the other. Let's see, hold on. Yeah, Thomas Davis is still in there.
Okay.
At last I've looked, but who knows. But anyway, so Thomas Davis, you have Bucs defensive tackle Gerald McCoy, Giants receiver Odell Beckham Jr. He's going to be great in the dodgeball game.
Oh, Sean Lee replaces Luke Kuechly. I'm sorry.
Okay. And then finally, so you guys have to watch, Dallas Cowboys running back Ezekiel Elliott.
Oh, God. Please don't get hurt.
And Dallas Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott.
Oh, boy. Please, God, don't tear something.
Yeah, don't throw that dodgeball too hard.
So Von Miller is going to hit a dodgeball at Dak Prescott and break his hand.
Yeah.
God.
I'm going to have to hear all about it next week.
Stop, Randy.
Pro Bowl challenges on Thursday night, so we get to do a recap of it on the Thursday podcast. I'm very excited.
Oh,
this is going to be fun.
Okay. So, do you want to make anything of Deshaun Watson deciding to not play in the Senior Bowl even after the Cleveland Browns, who are coaching his team, asked him to play? Hugh Jackson says he won't hold it against him. Of course, the Browns have the number 1 pick.
No, because the way I look at this, honestly, people find it funny that, the Browns are coaching it and he's not going to play. I don't think he should have played anyways. I think the Senior Bowl needs to be put in for people that are vying for draft positions. I mean, yes, if he plays it and he does absolutely amazing, could his draft stock go up a little bit? Maybe. But you go in that and you play like garbage, it can only drop. So I think as far as quarterbacks go, if I am projected in the 5th, 6th, 7th, or undrafted, then yeah, absolutely I'm playing in the Senior Bowl. But if I'm one of those top 4 or 5 quarterbacks, why risk it?
I wonder if Deshaun Watson is even the type of quarterback that Kyle Shanahan would want. That he would even take, like, let's say the 49ers at number 2 would take him. I mean, the Browns could definitely take him, but for God's sakes, you've been drafting quarterbacks for, like, just please, like, let a quarterback actually go and be good. Don't kill them, please. But, I don't know. I feel like the 49ers are going to draft the QB, and I'm assuming Deshaun Watson is your number 1 QB at this point. So,
Yeah. The Senior Bowl is exciting, especially if you love the draft and you love to kind of figure out who's going to be the next big star and all that. And I get it. I'm kind of with Brandy on this and the fact that, you've got huge names that don't always go to these, and it's understandable. A lot of times they're agents. A lot of times other people close to them giving them advice not to do it because of what Randy said. I think at the end of the day, you saw Deshaun Watson. You saw everything that he could provide, and I don't know that playing in this game is going to really change your mind about what you saw him do, especially because he went so far. But you do see guys like Dak Prescott last year, where the Dallas Cowboys did sit and actually get to talk with this guy longer than they would if they got to just draft him because he was at the Senior Bowl. And I think that's what the Cleveland Browns are trying to do. They really want to get to know these guys. They probably really do want to get to know him because I think they're, possibly considering him. So that's the thing. They can be more intimate. They can actually, by rule, talk to these guys because, they're coaching the game, even though, they're, not actually getting a scheduled meeting. So that's what this is all about.
Yeah, very true. Didn't really think of that that thing right there of getting to know the player and going, okay, this is a guy that I really. Perhaps Deshaun Watson is being smart and saying, okay, I'm going to avoid going just so I don't have to talk to the Browns at all, and maybe they won't draft me. But hey, you know what? If I'm him, seriously, go somewhere else. Even if I have to play. Even if I don't play the first year, like, wouldn't you rather do that than go to,
And you do what Dak did, go get a DUI.
Oh, God. That's not good.
I'm just saying. I know it's not
conspiracy.
That's not good at all.
I'm just saying.
Do you think he drank thinking that the Browns might draft him?
What? Oh, God. These hypotheticals are getting
We have
terrible.
a record-breaking news. All the top quarterbacks in this year's senior, all alcoholics.
What do they call that now? Alternative facts? That's my alternative fact for the podcast.
You spread fake news. This is called alternative facts now.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Stupid.
Oh, man, you got to love it.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of Football to the Max. We'll, of course, be back on Friday morning with our thoughts on the dodgeball game, and maybe somebody will talk about the Pro Bowl, and we'll talk about some of our, maybe look at the Senior Bowl rosters and some guys we might actually want to be looking at and all that kind of stuff. So, all right, man. God, only one game that matters left. It's amazing. This is already 2016 season is all but over at this point, other than the Super Bowl. It's crazy how fast this time goes.
Yeah, I know.
But alrighty, until that Friday morning show, we'll see you later, everybody.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.